to light our Advent candles, and the Jackson family is going to help us. How many candles are we lighting this week, my friends? Tell me. Show me how many fingers. 3. And girls, what color are we lighting? Do you remember? Tell me. We're lighting blue, pink. You got it. And we are not lighting which one? The white one. We do not light the white one, right? When do we light the white one? When do we light the white one? Tim? Christmas Eve, Tim, you got it. That's when we light the white one. In this season of expectant waiting, we rejoice. In the dance, we find partners, the old and the newborn, the wounded and the weary, the tattooed and the plain, the dreadlocked and the bald, all the genders and expressions. Rooted in joy, regarding each person as worthy, embracing each soul as God's beloved. Okay. Ready? Got it? Oh, good job, Cece. Good job. Awesome work. Are we ready? Okay, awesome. We're good. Nice job. Oh, John, we wanted to see that. Okay, now you all need to stand here and smile so that Jason can get a great photo of this. Everybody smile. Look at this family. We love them. A reading from Isaiah 9, verses 2 through 7. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who lived in a land of deep darkness, on them light has shined. You have multiplied the nation, you have increased its joy. They rejoice before you as with joy at the harvest, as people exult when dividing plunder. For the yoke of their burden and the bar across their shoulders, the rod of their oppressor, you have broken as on the day of Midian. For all the boots of the tramping warriors and all the garments rolled in blood shall be burned as fuel for the fire. For a child has been born for us, a son given to us. Authority rests upon his shoulders, and he is named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His authority shall grow continually, and there shall be endless peace for the throne of David and his kingdom. He will establish and uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time onwards and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this.
A reading from Isaiah chapter 11, verses 1 through 10. A shoot shall come out from the stalk of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. His delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. He shall not judge by what his eyes see, or decide by what his ears hear, but with righteousness he shall judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt around his waist, and faithfulness the belt around his loins. The wolf shall live with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the kid, the calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child shall play over the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put its hand on the adder's den. They will not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. On that day, the root of Jesse shall stand as a signal to the peoples. The nations shall inquire of him, and his dwelling shall be glorious.
A reading from Isaiah 35, verses 1 through 10. The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad, the desert shall rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given to it, the majesty of Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the glory of the Lord, the majesty of our God. Strengthen the weak hands and make firm the feeble knees. Say to those who are of a fearful heart, be strong, do not fear, here is your God. He will come with vengeance, with terrible recompense. He will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the speechless sing for joy. For waters shall break forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. The burning sand shall become a pool, and the thirsty ground springs of water. The haunt of jackals shall become a swamp, the grass shall become reeds and rushes.
Bloom where you are planted. This is the phrase that returned to me when Scott shared with me his ideas for today's service. This morning, the passages from Isaiah, together with the various choir anthems and hymns, evoke a sense of lushness and abundance against a backdrop of harshness and difficult circumstances. The imagery of flowers blossoming in the desert is fitting for this third Sunday in Advent, the Sunday that we set aside to contemplate and hopefully experience joy. This is the Sunday when we light a candle for joy. In Advent, there is a sense of anticipatory joy. Anticipatory joy because we know that Jesus will be born once again. As I explored with the children, we have the sense that something really great is about to happen, that we are about to open a really amazing gift, one that we know will be life-changing, but we can't open it until December 25th. Yet, just knowing that we get to open it soon, that soon we will celebrate the coming of Christ and the Christ child again, is enough to fill us with joy now. This speaks to the tension of the gospel. We are asked to be here now. Be fully present in the here and now and make a difference in this world and in this lifetime. And at the same time, we look forward to the future, to l'avenir, with joyful anticipation of all that's possible, of all that will be, to the coming realm of heaven here on earth. Often we call this living in the now and the not yet. And another way to think of it is to consider the phrase, bloom where you are planted. Isaiah tells us that from the dryness of the desert, lush new life can and does spring forth. Isaiah tells us that there is an oasis for those with eyes to perceive it. The prophet envisions a new era when the redeemed shall return with singing and everlasting joy. In this new epoch, the signs of revived life and abundance are everywhere. The desert blooms, the blind see, the deaf hear, the speechless sing for joy, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. And while Advent helps us to prepare for Christmas, Christmas itself is an expectant glimpse of this new era to come. The editors at the Salt Collective look to St. Augustine for inspiration, saying that the understanding of Advent waiting is sacramental. A sacrament, according to Augustine, is a visible sign of an invisible grace. Our texts and our hymns and our anthems this morning point to the sacramental nature of Advent. To see in the first Advent a sacrament of the second, a sacrament of the realm of heaven, and in whatever joys that we see and hear all around us, even in the midst of dryness and difficulty and sorrow. Despite the circumstances of our lives, and indeed right in the midst of them, God calls us to become such sacramental glimpses ourselves, to become visible, audible, encouraging signs to the weary and to the fearful in the world. In other words, bloom where you are planted. Blooming to me seems to be the horticultural equivalent of rejoicing. And this morning we are called to rejoice. And in case it sounds as though I am making light of the difficulties and the pain that we all at some point face, let me turn your attention to one word in the text. Vengeance, as in God's vengeance. We hosted this text together in our Advent prayer group this past week, and Glenn shared his understanding of what God's vengeance is doing. God's vengeance in this context is going to work on us. It's going to work on removing or challenging or healing all the things within ourselves. All the things that we tell ourselves, all the ways that we sabotage ourselves, that keep us from fully living into this vision of flourishing that Isaiah conjures. God's vengeance is unleashed against all that would separate us from the experience of God's love and God's grace. And it is in this way that God saves us. God saves us from ourselves. And so saved, we are able to blossom and to bloom once more. We are able to rejoice once more. For what was in the way of flourishing has been vanquished. Now, it's important to note that this experience of joy, this blooming, does not happen once the pain has gone away or only after the circumstances have improved. It does not wait for justice to be fully realized. We can experience it now in the midst of the troubles. The great spiritual teacher Henri Nouwen expressed it this way: while happiness usually depends on circumstances, joy runs deeper. Joy, he writes, is the experience of knowing that you are unconditionally loved and that nothing, sickness, failure, emotional distress, oppression, war, or even death can take that love away. Thus, joy can be found in the midst of sorrowful circumstances, in the midst of our wilderness times. Because even in the wilderness, God is there and will love us without limit. So in the desert times of your life, whatever they may be, you can still rejoice. Advent reminds us that the realm of heaven is at hand. Bloom where you are planted, knowing that God loves you unconditionally and that nothing can separate you from that love in Christ Jesus, the one for whom we wait in Advent. This is Joy Sunday. Rejoice and bloom where you are planted. We will now hear again from the prophet Isaiah, this time at chapter 40, verses 1 through 8. Comfort, O comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and cry to her as she has served her term, that her penalty is paid, that she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. A voice cries out, in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be lifted up, and every mountain and hill be made low. The uneven ground shall become level, and the rough places a plain. Then the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all people shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. A voice says, cry out, and I said, what shall I cry? All people are grass. Their constancy is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades. When the breath of the Lord blows upon it, surely the people are grass. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God will stand forever.
A reading from Isaiah 55, verses 10 through 13. For as the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return there until they have watered the earth, making it bring forth and sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose and succeed in the thing for which I sent it. For you shall go out in joy and be led back in peace. The mountains and the hills before you shall burst into song, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. Instead of the thorn shall come up the cypress. Instead of the briar shall come up the myrtle. And it shall be to the Lord for a memorial, for an everlasting sign that shall not be cut off.
Let